Welcome to the Mothers Leading the Way video series. Join us as we explore practical tips and tricks based on research to manage the many roles that working mothers play. Rodriguez-Neisius has over 2 decades of experience working with children and families as a licensed professional counselor and school psychologist. She has a unique appreciation of different cultures that has allowed her to serve families from all walks of life. In addition to her work with school districts in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Lynn has started her own personal practice, Your Child's Counselor, to help provide more individualized counseling services to children.
I'm Lynn Rodriguez-Neisius, and I'm thrilled to be part of Mothers Leading the Way lecture series with the Jane Nelson Institute for Women's Leadership at Texas Women's University. I'm a licensed professional counselor and school psychologist, and I have 24 years of experience. I'm also a mom since 1997, and I still have one school-aged child at home. The information I will share with you today comes from my experiences with youth as well as current research. Because I'm licensed, I need to state that this information is for educational purposes only and is not to be considered mental health care. At the end of the talk, you will see a QR code on the screen, and I encourage you to take a picture of that so that you can access references to things that I talk about, as well as resources related to the subject of this talk. I'm going to share my screen with you now. I do actually continue to work in public and private schools, and I have a private counseling practice in North Richland Hills. Youth mental health has changed a lot over the past few years. Of course, these topics may always be changing, but a lot happened related to the pandemic that seems to be impacting mental health. And so in my talk today, I'm going to share with you updated information about youth and their mental health. I'm going to talk about digital media, how youth are using digital media, how it's impacting them, and what we can do to support positive brain development and mental health. I'm also going to address some areas of concern like attention, impulsivity, anxiety, and depression. And I'm also going to share some tips with you about ways that you can support the young people in your lives. So mental health includes thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. It impacts our everyday life, our physical health, and our relationships. When we have mental health, life is good. When we don't, we're struggling. It's normal and expected to experience a range of emotions. Emotions serve purposes, and we want our children to know how to regulate their moods and their reactions. Life challenges allow our children to practice coping skills and build resilience. Children need to have difficult experiences and uncomfortable emotions so that they're prepared for real life. Other factors which impact mental health come from genetics, culture, the environment, and for example, sometimes anxious parents have anxious children due to a genetic predisposition. Race, gender, and poverty also impact mental health. I read that people growing up in poverty are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop a mental health condition. We're going to review an important tool that helps people cope with mental health challenges, and this is breathing. Breathing is a very important coping tool because when we use deep breathing, oxygen is released, it goes to our brain, and it stimulates our nervous system to calm down. And so I'm going to teach you a technique where you put one hand on your heart, another hand on your stomach. Breathe in deeply through your nose, and as your lungs fill, feel your hand on your stomach coming out, and then blow the air out through your mouth and blow all of the air out. In order to stimulate the relaxation response, it's advised that you take at least 3 deep breaths in a row. And it's important, in order to be able to use this in a time of need, that you learn it at a time when you're not feeling stressed. You can model this for your children, Teach it to them, perhaps incorporate it into part of your daily routine where maybe every morning or every evening you practice deep breathing. This will make it easier for your children to use this skill at times when they need it. Unfortunately, even prior to the pandemic, mental health conditions such as depression and suicide were rising for teens. Prior to 2020, girls were more likely to be diagnosed with anxiety, depression, or an eating disorder. Boys were more likely to die by suicide or be diagnosed with a behavior disorder. So, studies showed during the pandemic, 2/3 of adolescents had difficulty completing schoolwork. Nearly half of teens said they felt persistently sad or hopeless. The U.S. Surgeon General report on youth mental health, which came out last year in 2021, showed that girls fared worse than boys during the pandemic. Comparing ER visits from the first few months of 2021 with statistics from the same time period in 2019, girls were seen for suicide-related behavior 51% more. An April 2022 study published by the CDC reflected that high schoolers had more risk factors during the period of January to June 2021 than they did previously. This included 32% of teens saying that they were currently using tobacco, alcohol, or other mood-altering substances. I'm also concerned about hearing impaired children who had more difficulty hearing and reading mouths and facial expressions due to masks, as well as young children who were not yet school age and therefore stayed home and did not have access to interacting with other children and learning social skills, as well as they may not have gone to grocery stores or appointments like they would have in the past. Some positive impact from the pandemic were that some students got more sleep, had more quality time with family. Some things that I'm aware of due to my work, I work with children ages 2 through high school graduation. And this related to preschoolers, I'm finding that they're having more tantrums than we normally expect for toddlers and preschoolers. They're more aggressive. More children are being asked to leave daycare due to biting and hitting. Elementary school age students are having difficulty with focusing. They're having trouble expressing their emotions appropriately, like anger and frustration, and they might be more aggressive as well as be experiencing more learning delays. Middle schoolers are seeming more immature than in the past. There's more cyberbullying going on and even physical altercations. Middle schoolers are experiencing more anxiety, and we're seeing more self-harm and suicidal behavior. High schoolers are experiencing many of these same characteristics, as well as lack of interest and focus on academics, poor attendance, suicidal thoughts, and we're also seeing vaping and drug use as problems. So I feel I can't do anything anymore without my phone. And I think we all feel the same way, including children and teens. These wondrous devices are also impacting people's moods. Let's consider some statistics. The average 5 to 8-year-old spends 3 hours with screen media per day. Data from BARC in the fall 2021 indicated that teens are consuming 8.5 hours of digital media per day. Also, 38% of young people report social media has a negative impact on how they feel about themselves. Teens who spend 5 or more hours per day on their devices are 71% more likely to have one risk factor for suicide. And I want you to think about that combined with this data showing that teens are consuming 8.5 hours per day. So therefore, many of them are being exposed to information about suicide, not that they don't already know it, but they may be developing risk factors. The Canadian Medical Association in February 2022, before the pandemic, published a research and guidance article about smartphones, social media, and youth mental health. Since the advent of the smartphone, mental health ratings, especially for teen girls, have plummeted. I added their findings to this word cloud, and I will mention a few. It was partially related to social comparison, whereby what is portrayed on social media, which is usually all positive, actually makes teen girls feel badly about themselves. Cyberbullying was also cited as a factor in the declining mental health for teen girls. A correlation was made between the amount of time spent on the phone and worse mental health ratings. Let's go back again to 8.5 hours per day, which is the current statistic. Digital media and phones are also impacting children's brain development. In 2010, I started to observe parents bringing toddlers to evaluations with tablets and smartphones. This changed the dynamic of our assessments, as toddlers seemed to want to interact with their parents and us less when they were entertained by a device. Early childhood is a critical time for children's brain development. Some research has been done, but we still don't know the full impact because there are so many variables involved. Many studies have found connections between hours spent using digital media and attention, increased tantrums, and delayed learning. I do want to address that many children are using devices throughout the night. Even elementary school age students have told me that the reason they're falling asleep at school is because they're staying up until 3 a.m. playing games on phones and devices. They also tell me that their parents don't know about this. I have heard of some parents who choose to keep the devices in their own bedroom at night so that children cannot gain access and then interfere with their sleep. So what we can do is we can postpone screens for infants and toddlers. Even background TV has been shown to be harmful for development for children under the age of 2. We can encourage moderation in use, and we can employ parental controls on devices. There is research showing that quality educational programming like videos, games, and apps, when used in moderation, can facilitate healthy development and cognitive skills. Go Noodle is a fun, active site I recommend. Also, we can reduce technoference. This is a new term I learned about in preparing for this talk. It refers to frequent disruptions that digital media cause in relationships. It may be happening to you while watching this video. Perhaps your phone is vibrating and distracting you from this content. A very interesting study of mothers teaching toddlers 2 new words, experimented by one group getting a phone call that interrupted the instruction. Those children were significantly less likely to learn the new word when they were interrupted. Problems I'm seeing in children I work with. Problems with sharing, reciprocity, which is this back and forth interaction, impulse control and patience, thinking about people around them. In real life, things get complicated. We have to pay attention or at least sit quietly during boring activities. We have to understand that our actions cause reactions in other people, and then they interact with us based on that response. Your relationship with your child and adolescent is your superpower. Build a strong relationship with plenty of positive interactions. Do things that you both enjoy. Laugh together. You'll need this strong relationship base when you have to set a limit or enforce a rule. More time on digital media appears to have a negative impact on kids' development of attention, managing their moods, and impulsive responding. These are characteristics of what could be attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or other behavior problems. Data up to the year 2018 reflected that 10% of children under the age of 18 have the diagnosis of ADHD. Whether a young person has ADHD or not, I want to share my experience that children who struggle with focus at school, and this continues over the course of several years, they can eventually develop more mood-type symptoms like depression and anxiety and even conduct disorder. There's a resource called Children and Adults with Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. They have a website, chad.org. This is linked in my reference document at the end of the presentation. Their website has information indicating that half of the children who are diagnosed with ADHD have behavioral or conduct problems. 1 in 3 of children with ADHD also have anxiety, and 1 in 6 have depression. Unhealthy behaviors can be promoted on social media. The most popular platforms for teens are TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, and Instagram. What is healthy could be subjective, but some examples that come to my mind as definitely unhealthy are things like videos promoting self-harm, eating disorders, and how to hide disordered eating from adults, misinformation about drugs, challenges like those this past fall, where every month students were challenged to do something disruptive at school, like stealing parts of the building, like faucets and toilets. It's a bit ironic, but I've posted about these topics on my business Facebook page. For example, people have wondered how the algorithms for personalized videos work on TikTok. They seem to read our minds. A computer simulation of the algorithm used in TikTok was conducted in late 2021, and the computer lingered over depressive content as if a person were scrolling and then hesitated or stopped ever so briefly on content related to depression. After only 2 hours, this simulation fed the user a steady diet of content about depression. This would definitely not be healthy for someone who was experiencing depression. The Wall Street Journal reporter Julie Jargon writes a newsletter and just recently addressed new parental controls on TikTok, as well as other platforms that are supposed to be implemented in the summer. And the new parental controls on TikTok will even block the personalized video feeds for kids under a certain age. It is important, if you were to sign up for TikTok, that you must sign up with your teen and use the correct birthday in order to benefit from these parental control options. Another Wall Street Journal article this winter addressed the fact that now most people are no longer reading posts. Everything is moving to a video format. This leads me to question, how will this impact youth's brain development? We know that instant gratification activates the reward centers in the brain and can make it hard to stop. For example, dopamine is released when we get likes or positive feedback on posts. It's also released when we are watching personalized videos. This can lead people to feel like they cannot stop watching or scrolling. Interestingly, earlier this year, I interviewed a group of middle school girls and asked them what they don't like about social media. Every girl's first answer was that it's addicting. Social media addiction is not yet a diagnosable condition. However, it is being considered. This came from BARC's annual report in 2021, and it was interesting to learn current texting and emoji meanings. They say the internet's growth was largely fueled by pornography. Well, inappropriate content is still easily available online. 69% of tweens and 91% of teens have encountered nudity or content of a sexual nature. Childhood 2.0 is a movie available on Amazon that I recommend watching with your older children, like perhaps age 11 and up. This relates to mental health because violent and sexually charged content has been found to be related to aggressive, antisocial behavior, as well as lower academic achievement. Also, teen sexting is associated with an increased risk of bullying, and I understand that it is very common. What we can do is we can use digital media together with our children. We know that children develop executive functioning skills. These are the skills related to attention and emotional control or regulation. And they develop these skills when they interact with real people who are present and responsive to their needs. I suggest that we integrate these acts with digital media. Adjust your use and conversation for your child's age. As they get older, ask them, where do they feel supported online? Who do they follow and why? Do they see things that make them feel unsafe? Encourage your family members to use digital media in public spaces. You can also create a digital media contract. You can find them online, and you can also edit them to reflect your own expectations and limits that may change as your teenager grows older, and then you start preparing them for more independence and freedom. Hang in with me because we might have built up some anxiety with all of these facts. It's natural for us to experience a range of emotions. Anxiety can be adaptive. It's motivating. Too much, however, can limit us. Physical symptoms of anxiety are listed here. Psychological symptoms include thoughts, like negative thoughts. Something bad is going to happen. I've had children who are scared of vomiting. They're worried that they will vomit at school or they're going to fail. It also affects concentration because when a person is having obsessive thoughts and ruminating over a situation, it's hard for them to focus on learning or on what they're doing. Behaviorally, we do see a lot of school avoidance, children not wanting to come to school. Anxiety is the most common mental health disorder for children and teens, and 1 in 3 of youth will meet the diagnostic criteria for anxiety at some time before the age of 18. What can you do if your child is feeling anxious? You can prompt them to use a calming strategy. We've already talked about breathing. You could also remind them of a favorite toy or stuffed animal. Encourage them to take a drink of cold water. Distract them by thinking about something that is a favorite item or place or memory. Show your confidence in them by expressing optimism. Remind them of times they were scared and things worked out. Praise their efforts at coping. Prepare your children for new situations or ones which could cause anxiety by preloading suggestions for what they might do if a certain fear were actually to happen. Show compassion for what they're experiencing and follow up with medical providers. Depression. Surprisingly, there's an overlap of symptoms between depression and anxiety, but you can think of anxiety as more of a heightened state of energy and depression as a low state of energy. Physical symptoms of depression can be similar to anxiety. It can include headaches or stomach aches, sleep disruption, appetite changes, and regression in development. Younger children who were potty trained may struggle with that again. Psychological features of depression include moodiness, irritability, crying, sensitivity to rejection or failure, hopelessness, and negative behavior. Studies have identified that persons who are experiencing depression use more negative and absolute vocabulary. This includes words like never and always. I recently had a student tell me, Joey always tells me to stay away from him. Kids never want to play with me. So this should be a red flag that this child is using some extreme and unhealthy vocabulary. There also seems to be increased talk of suicide for youth, even in the elementary age. Behaviors associated with depression could include withdrawal, not being interested in playing with friends or activities that they typically enjoy, angry outbursts, defiance. And I also have seen students who are drawing a lot of violent or depressing drawings or writing statements on their papers. If you're concerned your child or teen is experiencing depression, I recommend contacting the school and check in with the teacher or guidance counselor. If they're on a team, get input from the coach to find out more about their observations for your child. 3 things that you can do for free, which help alleviate depression, are being outside, engaging in physical activity, and being around other people. You could do these 3 things all in one by going on a walk with your child outside and possibly inviting another child to join you. 988 is the new nationwide suicide prevention hotline, and it's going to be an equivalent to 911, which is for emergency medical care. 988 will be for mental health care. So how to find a counselor. If you're concerned for your child's mental health, some things to know is, what are the different professions? There are psychiatrists who are medical doctors. These are doctors who prescribe medicine for mental health conditions. There are also a range of licensed mental health providers like myself. I'm a licensed professional counselor. There are also licensed psychologists and several other types of licenses. In the state of Texas, there is a website where you can look up to ensure that a provider actually has an active license, and I've included a link to that in the reference document. Currently, there are also coaches and apps and websites where you can receive mental health care, but I do want to encourage you to make sure that the provider is well trained to be providing this type of assistance. Check into your insurance and be aware, what is your coverage for mental health care? What will your copay be? And this probably is going to require a diagnosis as well as communication of personal information with the insurance company so that they can provide reimbursement. Many people choose to go self-pay for mental health care, and that is an option. When you're looking for names, ask for references from the school guidance counselor and from your child's physician. Consider the methods used by the provider. Are they using research-based interventions? And will there be goals for your child's treatment? How will you be included and informed in the treatment? Emphasize to your child that counseling is something positive. Compare it to coaching or tutoring and help them know that this is to help them learn skills for life. The connection your child has with their counselor is paramount. And so have them participate in selecting the counselor. I mean, particularly as they get older, they can review the website for the counselor and participate in the initial consultation to see if maybe this is going to be a comfortable fit. Thank you so much for staying with me throughout this long talk where we talked about a lot of difficult topics. I hope that you do choose to snap a picture of the QR code, and there are a few bonus links in there. Take care.
The Mothers Leading the Way team is grateful for the support of the Jane Nelson Institute for Women's Leadership at Texas Women's University, as well as Positive Leadership at positiveleadership.com.